goes into making sure that the light comes on when you flip that switch.
We'll get into that discussion. Bottom of the hour. Plenty of time for your calls, texts, and tweets as well. Last Friday and Saturday, U.S. Senator and former Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders paid a visit to West Virginia. He brought his Stop the Oligarchy, or Fighting the Oligarchy, Where Do We Go From Here tour to Wheeling, Charleston, and Lenore. Sanders, during his visit, encouraged individuals to stand up and fight against a broken system. Here is Bernie Sanders from last week.
I am here to beg of you to organize around this state, get working class people organized to stand up and fight the fights that have to be fought.
Crowds were pretty good for Sanders in each of those stops, again, Wheeling, Charleston, and Lenore. Sanders says in order to have a bright future, we need to educate the children.
That means that we've got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And that we have to make trade schools available to all people to get the training they need to do the work we desperately need.
Again, Sanders speaking during his tour in 3 cities in West Virginia. He also went on to say that there is the money available to help with the homeless issue.
If we can spend $1 trillion a year on a bloated military budget, we can build the millions of units of low-income and affordable housing we need.
And finally, Sanders says West Virginians need to start electing people who are working for the working class.
So West Virginia, this is a working class state. Let's start electing people who represent the working class, not the billionaires.
Bernie Sanders from his stops on the Fighting the Oligarchy tour that came to Wheeling, Charleston, and Lenore on Friday and Saturday. Joining us on MetroNews Talk Line this morning, friend of the program, Fairmont State University political science professor Robert Bolton joins us. Robert, good morning. Glad you can join us again.
Good morning, my friend. I hope you're doing well, Dave.
Doing pretty well. Glad. Are you ready for the start of the semester, by the way? School's getting ready to start again.
It's always a little intimidating the first couple days, but I'm mentally adjusting to it.
So Bernie Sanders, we were talking about this heading into his visits to West Virginia Friday and Saturday, and I'll start here again with this question. Why West Virginia? Why would he come here where President Trump won 70% of the vote?
I think it's a textbook case of why the Democratic Party is in such a state of crisis right now. For 50, 60 years, from 1932 through 2000, almost each and every occasion that West Virginia went to the ballot box to elect the president, they voted for the Democrat candidate. But since 2000, they have reliably voted Republican. So Bernie Sanders and many Democrats, either behind closed doors or somewhat more openly, are asking themselves, the white working class at one point was the backbone of the Democratic Party. We have lost them. How can we regain them? And West Virginia coal miners, West Virginia steel mill, West Virginia glass blowers, these are the types of people that were perceived as a key constituency. And now it seems that the Democrats do not appeal to them anymore. Again, in this most recent election, Donald Trump won over 70% of the West Virginia vote. So the Democrats are scratching their heads and saying, how can we win some of those people back?
Professor, in your opinion, did Bernie do a good sales job over the weekend? Did he resonate with folks? Did anyone walk away saying, this is our guy?
Well, Bernie Sanders has always had, among the Democrats still existing in the state, a pretty ardent following. He got 51% of the vote back in 2016. Had the race not already been decided in Joe Biden's favor in 2020, I think he probably would have had a very good chance of winning the West Virginia primary in 2020. He seems to have drummed up a fair amount of enthusiasm. It looked like it was a packed house in Wheeling, Lenore, and in Charleston. But when I looked out at that crowd, I mostly saw two constituencies. I saw people who were relatively elderly, appeared to be in their 60s or 70s, retirees, And then I saw people in their very young 20s. Among those people that he claimed he was most commonly reaching out to, the working class, people in their late 20s through their late 50s, early 60s, I didn't see as many of those people. So was he able to drum up the Democrat base? Sure, but quite frankly, that Democrat base is not enough to get you elected today.
And we're talking to Robert Bolton, Fairmont State University political science professor. Even among that base, again, you brought this up. He has very strong, very loyal support. What is the draw?
I think that there is a perception that Bernie Sanders, despite being a multimillionaire U.S. senator, is someone who is more authentic than many of his peers in the Democratic Party or in American politics writ large. I have one very good friend of mine, Scott, who is a pretty ardent Trump supporter, and one of the only other politicians I ever hear him speak positively of is Bernie Sanders. And I think there's this perception that Bernie Sanders is willing to, even if he's not always right, tell it how he perceives the truth to be and is not beholden to the powers that be that govern our society.
Is Bernie talking in platitudes to some degree? And I'll go back to the cut that Dave just played. He was talking about making sure that any West Virginian could go to a trade school to get the skills that they need. I think that's a great living. That's a great thing to do. I'm not aware it's that hard to do. I mean, most programs West Virginia funds. We've got the 2-year community colleges, I think, that we fund. You can go join a union shop, and they'll put you through their apprentice program. Seems to me we already have what he's talking about, but maybe I'm missing something.
No, and that's where I find some of his platitudes a little tiresome. I know better than the vast majority of people what it's like to have students who are first generation. That's the vast majority of Fairmont State's student body are first generation students. And in regard to trade schools, likewise, yes, I'm not saying it is always going to be extremely easy or that there isn't going to be some expense borne out by pursuing your education. But if you want to pursue an education, there are student loans, there are grants, there are scholarships available to you. And one thing I would say in regard to trade school, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but it's all well and good to say that we need people who are trained as coal miners, electricians, and other manufacturing areas of the economy. But where are the jobs? Quite frankly, that's one of West Virginia's biggest problems today is as many of those blue-collar jobs have either been shipped overseas or have been phased out because we are now a service sector economy in large part. And that has happened under both Democratic and Republican presidential administrations. And that is one thing Trump, like or dislike, he has spoken about is bringing back American manufacturing. And that is something that, in my opinion, probably resonates with many of those core constituencies that Bernie Sanders is also starting to appeal to.
Talking to Robert Bolton, Fairmont State University political science professor. Bernie Sanders fighting the Oligarchy tour in West Virginia on Friday and Saturday. We have coverage, by the way, over at WVMetroNews.com. Robert, West Virginia has always been a little bit of a political oddball. It's kind of hard to pigeonhole us. Despite the Mountaineers are always free. We certainly love our freedom in the mountains. We certainly love our liberty. Have there historically been socialist tendencies in West Virginia that might lend a candidate like Bernie Sanders to have that kind of support?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Eugene Debs back in the 1912 presidential election did very well in West Virginia. We had socialists elected to our state legislature for decades. In the 1920s, you had the famous Battle of Blair Mountain, the fight in Mattawan. You've had a strong history of labor organizing throughout this state. Even in the 70s, when you had strip mining, there was a large labor element trying to organize against that. I do think that West Virginians in general have a relatively strong libertarian streak, and that can cut in ways that would be perceived as very liberal or very conservative, depending on who or what policy you're talking to about. So, yeah, I do think that that's certainly true. With that being said, I believe over the last 20 years or so, West Virginia has tilted more and more to a traditional right perspective. And I don't see, at this point anyway, any Democratic candidate or any other third-party candidate being successful at the ballot box statewide, or even, quite frankly, in most local elections today.
I watched the Wheeling speech on YouTube. A number of people spoke before Bernie, including former delegate from Mon County, Danielle Walker. There was this theme. There was a theme of, I'll call it anti-wealth. I mean, we went after Musk, went after him big time. Bernie talked about it not being moral or economically right that one man had more wealth than the bottom 52% of American households. Robert, when I do that math, and I basically take his entire net worth away, divvy it among that bottom 52% of households, it's about $2,600 a household. And I'm not saying $2,600 is anything to sneeze at. But economically, I mean, that's not going to change anybody's world. But at the same time, it would definitely change what Musk has given back to innovation in this country, the companies he started, the people he employs. Will West Virginians really buy this assault on wealth and billionaires, or do they see through it? Or maybe it's valid. You tell me.
I do think that there is some legitimate criticism about saying, should someone have be a trillionaire? And there's a very decent chance before this decade is out that Elon Musk will have $1 trillion. I think at last count he had $450 billion right now. So I do think that there is something to be said. Is that give someone an outsized influence on American politics? Possibly. And I do think that that is something that we need to be mindful of. But I've generally trusted the American people in the past. There have been John D. Rockefellers, there have been Andrew Carnegies in the past, and the American people in our republic have managed to prevail over any attempt to exercise undue influence. May take a while. There may be some hiccups along the way, but I believe that's true. In regard to Bernie Sanders, to be blunt with you, show me how that this can be accomplished, Bernie. Tell me, Senator Sanders, what we can do so that we can redistribute wealth so that everyone can get a free education, that we can invest in all these different programs. Because when I look at his legislative record, except for renaming one or two post offices up in New England, he's never passed a single piece of legislation in his life in the U.S. Senate.
Go ahead,
Robert.
Finish your thought. No, go ahead.
Oh, no. And I was just going to say, and all else aside, look, I'm not saying that capitalism is a perfect system. There are definitely winners or losers. But when you look at any other economic model that has ever been constructed, including socialism, it's generally ended up in more misery. The fact of the matter is people, individuals, are the ones who pull themselves into a wealthy state of being. The government cannot make you a wealthy individual.
What I was going to say, Robert, is that is a political strategy as old as politics, isn't it? You need to support me or my party or my group of candidates because there's some sort of hard to define force that is out to get you, and only I can stop them. In this case, it's the super wealthy. In another case, it's the big bad corporations, or it's the deep state. That's a game as old as politics.
And that is one reason why I think Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump both have a strong appeal in West Virginia is they have both said that there is an elite cabal that is out to mislead you, that is out to take advantage of you, and I am the person who recognizes that, and I can stop it. Now, who they claim are the elite are very different individuals, but they both do engage in that same rhetoric. It is much easier to demonize the other than it is to build a coalition, build alliances, and having a thoughtful, calm discussion and saying, okay, what can we do to make lives better for the American people writ large?
Robert Bolton, Fairmont State University political science professor. Always enjoy the conversations. Thank you, Robert.
Likewise, Dave. Likewise, TJ. Thank you both for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Coming up, we'll get to the text line, 304-TALK-304. This is Talk Line from the Encova Insurance Studios.
When someone has a concussion, whether a child or a professional athlete,